Alright, hello everyone. So let's continue our lecture in terms of the topic of the age and the population structure. So this is second topic of this week, and there is one another topic named as the sex or gender and the population structure. So this is the second lecture, the second topic out of three topics assigned for this week. Alright. So let me go to the full screen and go together. So I mentioned that there are the major topics of the population studies and the population composition. So compared with the population size, population composition, and the structure and the relationship between the population size and the structure and the composition. These will be very important topic of the population studies. So in this time for this lecture, we will focus on the age and the population structure. So let's see. So age. So there are many groups of the age, right? So from the beginning of the life as the birth and the end of the life as death. So we will cover more details about the fertility and the mortality, but we can divide them as the age groups as very younger generations or the juvenile, adolescents, or other generations such as the middle age or the elderly or the older adults. So based on the grouping of the age groups, so we can see many of the other topics we can focus on as the key topics of the population studies. So let's see, this is what we say the population pyramid, or the proportion of the groups of the age group based on the years in the population. So I usually use the Our World in Data. This is also the free website, and there are many types of the very rich and very educational resources. So these lines indicate the proportion or the number of the population. So these are the age distribution of the world population by gender, and we can see that a very long time ago, there were very largest amount of the people in the younger generations, less than 10 years old. But as time goes by, as we have the better medical facilities and the better public hygiene, then we could have the longer life expectancy, which means the longer lifespan of the life, or the longer period of time expected to live at their birth or from their birth. So compared with the younger generation, as time goes by, the proportion are getting thicker and thicker. And in the projection, in terms of the future forecast, we can see that a very large amount of the people will be covered by the older generations, or more older than 50 years old or the older than 60 years old. So as we could see in this graph, we can see that the aging process, the population is growing older and older because the proportion of the younger generation is not that big generations, or not that big proportion compared with a long time ago, or several decades ago, or the 100 years ago. Alright, so this is the median age from 1950 or 2010 to 2100 based on the projection. So the median age, the very middle of the distribution, which is the exact middle of the distribution of the age. So middle age indicates the aging, the level of the aging of the society. So we can see that the Japan in the projection, now we are in the 2023, but in terms of the projection, so the Japan has the highest level of the median age, which means relatively older than other countries like United Kingdom, China, United States, Brazil, India, and Nigeria. But as time goes by, China gets more older and older. So because of the generation changes or the population changes, the China and Japan still, and Brazil and many of the countries will have the fleet relationship in terms of their ranking in their age. But anyway, the Nigeria would be relatively younger than other countries based on the development level. Alright, so age. So there are many types of the ages we can count, but we usually use as the calculation of the interval of the time between the date of birth and the date of census expressed in the complete solar years. So that's the very basics, but in some cultures, they would use the lunar calendar, but in most cases, we use the solar calendar as the main standard of the age calculation. Alright, so this is very common type of the table, contains very rich information. So this is from the census data, the government survey in 2020, and there these tables are showing the projection of the calculated population from 2000, 2010, 2020, and later, not the later. So we could see that the 30,000. So there we would have more, but 331 million people in the United States, and the proportion of the younger than 18 years old, which are the younger generations relatively, they are about 22.1% in 2020. And the remainder of the 77.9% would be the 18 years and older. However, to change from 2000 to 2010, and the change from the 2010 to 2020, we can find some the key change, a very influential change in this table. So you can see that the 9.7 on the percent and the 2.6, which means that there was increase of the population from 2000 to 2010 as 9.7, which means 9.7 of the population increased within this period of time. And there was increase of the 2.6% and 12.2%, which means there were the increase of the population. However, the change from 2010 to 2020, the proportion, or anyway, the population under 18 years, it is decreased in this period of time. So we can see that, so the graying population or the aging population whatsoever, we can explain that the proportion of the younger generation is decreasing from 2010 to 2020 because of the low birth weight and the aging process, which means there is increase of the on the older generations or the middle age generations. But in any case, the United States is getting older and older because there are very large increase of the older generation, older than 18 years old, and there is decrease of the younger generation. So that is very irresistible processes of the aging population. So this is very simple, the summarization of the very key figure. We can see that the age group and the gender specific rate. So I will provide more examples, but usually the numerator will be the population, the age group specific, and the gender, the class specific population multiplied by the 100 to calculate the percentage, and the denominator will be the total number, usually the total number of the population, including the males and females and all age groups. So based on the calculation, we can find the proportion of a specific age group in the gender, the specific age group of the males or specific age groups of the females. So we can calculate the more detailed the rates in the next slides. So which country has a bigger or the larger percentage of the 5 through 14 years old group, which are we would say the juvenile or adolescents, but the combined group of the juveniles or the children and the adolescents. So which country would have the more proportion? So regardless of the population size, we are trying to compare the proportion of that younger age groups. So you would say maybe Canada, not sure, but you may say the United States, but we can calculate that based on the numbers. All right, so these are the rates of Japan, and maybe we can try to compare that. So maybe the United States, not the Japan. All right, so this is the United States, and not Nigeria, maybe the Canada. Okay. All right. So 2021. So 5 through 14, we can see that, we cannot see the proportion. So we can click the relative, we can see relative to show the proportion. So it says that in the United States in 2021, so 12.56% was the 5 through 14 years. So 12 something, 12 and a half. And in the Canada, so only 10.75%. So about 11% of the population was 5 through 14 years old. So we can compare. So based on this website and based on this graph, we can compare the relative size, I mean the proportion of a specific age group of the country. So compared with the United States, the 65 plus years, which means 65 and 65 years old and more than or older than 65 years old. We can see that in Canada, 18.52% was in that older adults age group. However, there was 18, but in the United States, only 16.68. So compared with the Canada, United States has a smaller or relatively smaller proportion of the older generations or older adults, elderly, whatsoever, and kind of the terminology. We can see that in terms of the aging, Canada has the faster process. Or maybe we can change the country as Japan, which has the very, very fast level of the aging. And you can see that very on our bare hand, or bare eyes, 16.68, and about 30%. In Japan, about 30% of the population are older than 65 or 65 years older than 65 years old. So we can see the pace or the speed of the aging process of each country, and they would have very different types of the aging processes based on their development level and the population composition and others. But anyway, in any case, Japan has very, very fast speed of the aging in terms of the population process. Alright, so this is another graph we can see on our textbook. Population change by the age group and the region, and Northeast and the Midwest and the South and the West, which are the very big unit of the population regions and the population unit. And we can see that the 2020 census, the percent, sorry. So Northeast would have the highest level, highest proportion of the 18 years and older. And compared with the older than 18 years old, under 18 years, the Northeast would have the lowest level of the under than 18 years. And there would be the changes as well. The United States, under 18 years, and the decrease in the proportion. The Northeast would have the highest level of the decrease of the 18 or under 18 years old. Some other countries, some other areas like the South, we belong to. The Arkansas is one part of the South, the region, and the South would have the increase of the under 18 years old. There would be many other factors, maybe some part of the impact of the immigrations, for example, or impact of the culture of fostering on the births of the babies, and so many other factors. But we can see that there are some differences in terms of the changes from 2010 to 2020. So this is the better visualization, and I would recommend you to focus on this graph because this is very, very good example. The South, there's compared with the 2000 to 2010 and 2010 to 2020, there were the increase of the 18 years old and over. Under 18 years old. So the blue color, anyway, from 2000 to 2010 increase, from 2010 to 2020, there was increase of the younger generations. However, the Northeast and the Midwest and the West, at least under, sorry about that. So at least the South, at least the South and the West and the Midwest and the Northeast, there were very different types of the changes, because in South, the region in the population of the United States, the under 18 years percent changed from 2000 to 2010, the blue color, and under 18 years percent change 2010 to 2020, there were increase of the younger generations. However, Northeast and the Midwest from 2000 to 2010, from 2010 to 2020, there were the decrease of the under 18 years old, which means that there were the decreasing proportion of the younger generations. However, some other states, so the West, there were increase of the population under 18 years old from 2000 to 2010, but in 2000, between 2010 and 2020, there was decrease of the younger generations. But in any case, the Northeast and the Midwest and the South and the West, they all had increase of the 18 years and the older population because of the aging process and the better public hygiene and the health condition, and because of the longer longevity or the life expectancy. So we can see that we are enjoying the longer lifespan as a life expectancy, but the proportion of the younger generation is decreasing in the Northeast and the Midwest and the West after 2010 compared with the South. Okay, thank you very much and see you in next video. Oh, within the same topic. So my lecture is not done yet, but see you in the next the part of the video to continue the lecture of the topic 5 maybe, of the age and the population structure.